I didn't expect to have a news video up so soon, but it turns out there's been a busy week for Steam Deck. Some devs got their dev kits, Linux got an interesting minor update, and more. So with that, I figured there's enough to talk about this week, so let's get into it. First up, we have a tweet from Steam Deck engineer Pierre-Loup Griffin, and he says, quote, "New Proton experimental release today with Deathloop playable on RADV," end quote. So as I mentioned, Pierre-Loup is a Steam Deck developer, and he's been one of the few public faces that we've had. You've seen him on IGN interviews, and he's had a number of tweets that served as news for us waiting to hear, well, anything. Here he's talking about Deathloop 2 days after it launched. He says there's a new Proton experimental release making Deathloop now playable. So what does that mean? If you don't know by now, Proton is a rendering layer that helps make Windows games playable on Linux. It's at the core of what makes SteamOS possible. An experimental release is a version that's not been tested by the general public, and therefore it may not be really fully stable yet. So basically, 2 days after Deathloop was released, there's an experimental version of Proton that now makes it playable. This tells us a few things, I think. Number one, it tells us that new AAA games are coming out today that are not immediately playable on SteamOS and therefore Steam Deck. This should become a lot less likely as more developers get their hands on dev kits and start prioritizing deck development, which we'll talk about soon. Number two, in best case scenarios, it may only take a few days for a fix to be ready, and it'll likely take some additional time to get a stable release out to the public, but this seems like a rather short turnaround all told. A third thing that I'm reading from this is that Valve is currently pushing fixes themselves. Clearly they see themselves as partners to making games playable on SteamOS. That may sound obvious, but I think it's reasonable to be dubious given that PC has been a platform where developers are mostly on their own to get stuff working properly. This does leave me with one question. Valve is evidently putting some effort forth to support devs, but what will their user support be like? In the past with Steam, any customer support that required human intervention has left a lot to be desired, and I'm crossing my fingers that this dev support is a small indication that things can change for the better in this area. In other open source contribution news, there's a report that code was added to an upcoming Linux kernel that is pretty Steam Deck specific. This new code basically allows for better handling of an 800 by 1280 panel. Note I said 800 by 1280, not 1280 by 800. This is a minor detail that tells us that the Steam Deck screen is in fact designed to be portrait rather than landscape. It's actually pretty common for smaller screens and there's no cause for alarm, but it is an interesting detail that'll have some impact on older games that may not be built to handle those different screen orientations. It's possible that this code allows devs not to worry about that orientation whatsoever, and that would be awesome. Alright, meat and potato time. Let's talk dev kits. You may have seen some tweets on Friday from some devs that got their dev kits. I saw ennettfoddy, for example. It's pretty cool to see these out in the wild now, and not just in a closed press event. Of course, they got asked lots of questions on Twitter, and while they're only allowed to comment on the hardware and their own games, they were nice enough to give us some of their impressions. First up is a developer from the Japanese studio IVR. I'm not familiar with their games, and they do seem like adult-oriented VR titles, so I'll probably keep it that way. But on screen now is some footage of a work-in-progress Unity title running at 60 FPS, so that's neat. As I mentioned, the creator of Getting Over It with ennettfoddy also received one. I saw some people surprised that an indie developer got a unit, and while Bennett is in fact indie, his game is a tremendous hit and he's extremely involved in the game development community. It honestly seems very reasonable that he would get one, and I don't think it's any indication of how many dev kits are out there or anything like that. In any case, he posted a screenshot of his game running on the Steam Deck with the caption, quote, "Well, this works shockingly well considering I didn't have to do anything at all to make it work," end quote. First of all, that's great news. Also, he does have a native Linux build, so I wonder if he's running this natively or via Proton or both. It seems Valve is pushing devs to use Proton even when they have native builds, so I'm curious as to what he's doing here. I did email him some questions, so if I get some good answers, I'll provide an update in an upcoming video. The Tabletop Sim Simulator Twitter account also posted their own screenshot of Tabletop Sim working on a Steam Deck, but I didn't see any follow-up impressions. And here's a big one. The creator of SteamDB, Pavel Jundek, posted some tweets of the Steam Deck UI. As he said, we've basically seen this in press events, but like I said earlier, it's so cool to see this just out in the wild. He also indicated that SteamOS 3 itself has now leaked, and that has gotten some people really excited. They're running it on their portable consoles. One thing though I would caution is if you're interested, just do not install, not yet. This is a leak. It's not an official distribution, which means the link you may end up finding could be nefarious. It would be pretty trivial for a developer to take the SteamOS leak, add a keylogger, and put that up for download, and Bob's your uncle, now the hackers have all your data. Finally, with regard to dev kits, there is a poster on Reset Era. Someone tell me how you pronounce that. There's a poster on these gaming forums that apparently got some hands-on time with the Steam Deck too. He made a point of the sound quality being quite nice, so that's great. He also said that it feels a bit like you're playing a Switch, but with the Hori Split Pad Pros attached. Those things are pretty beefy, but they do give you better control. The bumpers were his biggest complaint with regard to ergonomics, saying they sit flush with the casing and are difficult to feel. Otherwise, the ergonomics seemed on point, with everything being easily reachable. As for performance, things look pretty good. He tried Monster Hunter World. He could only choose the 720p resolution, but tried each of the graphical presets. At low, he got close to a consistent 60 FPS, but blurry image quality. At medium, he got around 40 to 45 FPS. Anything above that hovered around 30. His final recommendation was, if you favor image quality, stick to the high preset with the 30 FPS cap. And the last bit of news I have is a quote I found on Reddit. I have yet to find the original source, so I would be more skeptical of this screenshot, but in all honesty, it's pretty tame. It reads, quote, "According to Coomer, the Steam Deck team is now focused on how to speed up production in spite of shortages affecting the entire tech industry," end quote. And then there's a quote from Coomer himself that says, quote, "We're very happy with the level of demand, but it also makes our job much clearer. We clearly ought to deliver devices sooner than we have told customers that we'll be able to. So we're working on ways that we might be able to do that," end quote. So the Steam Deck team is working on figuring out how to speed up production, which, I mean, yeah, isn't everybody? The question is there anything they can substantially do? The state of things leads me to believe there's not, but it doesn't matter what I think. What do you think? And what about these dev kits, huh? Turns out I should have made a life-changing decision to be an extremely successful game developer so I could get my hands on a Steam Deck just a few months earlier. Am I right? In any case, as always, if you stuck around this long, bring that big deck energy. Hit the like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Until next time, y'all. Peace.